found yourself feeling a little bit uncomfortable? Imagine this. You're at a party, the loud music is blaring, strobe lights as far as the eye can see, and you're shoulder to shoulder with people you've never even met before. And they're screaming at the top of their lungs, all at the same time, of course. How does that make you feel? Does going to pretty much any overly trafficked place drive you absolutely insane? Why are all those people even there anyway, all at the same time? How does that make you feel? How about walking barefoot, outdoors especially? Does walking on the sand to get to the beach, the water, completely ruin your perfect beach experience? What if you step on a crab, shell, or even glass? I know that would give me a really hard time. How does that make you feel? What about walking by the perfume counter at the mall? Does smelling 1,500 different perfumes and cologne drive you bonkers? Insane. How does that make you feel? How about giving a presentation in front of your class? The blinding lights are making me go crazy. The microphone that's projecting my voice and picking up every little thing makes me feel like I'm in some sort of a psychological traffic jam. All I want to do right now is close my ears and close my eyes, but I can't. But luckily for me, after 20 years, I've figured out kinda how to get a grasp on this whole sensory thing. If you feel any sort of itchiness, or if you feel a little bit uncomfortable from any of these slides that I've shown, you maybe have a little bit of a sensory issue. But don't you worry, that's actually really common. Anyone can experience sensory overload issues. Anybody, no matter your age. It's actually very common, or a lot more common than we all think. Sensory processing disorder is when our brains misinterpret sensory signals. So the things that allow us to taste, smell, hear, touch, and see. Oftentimes, sensory processing disorder is related to kids who have autism. So, for example, my nephew, Skylar, he has severe autism, and when he experiences sensory overload attacks, where he's really overly stimulated, he rocks back and forth because that calms him down. As for me, I deal with the same exact thing, but in a different way, because there are many different senses, we all experience it in many different ways. I feel like I'm a little thermometer that goes all the way up, and all this pressure is all in my head and I can't release it at all. I start to feel tingly all over my body, and I start to shake and cry. Jake can testify to this one. Our brains are like beautiful, complicated computer systems. What basically goes on in our heads is our senses interpret our surroundings and then sends the information to our brains, and then our brains process the information and basically tells us how to react. When there are competing sensory inputs, for some people that's really difficult and they're not able to focus on everything. So people that struggle with sensory processing disorder, they in a way shut down, quite literally shut down. And that's what we call sensory overload attacks, like I mentioned earlier. Now, to give you a little information about me and where I come from, when my mom was pregnant with me, I was born 3 months premature. That's really early. I was 2 pounds when I was born, due to my mom's burst appendix. Now, when I was born, the doctors were really scared because they knew that my brain wasn't going to be able to fully develop. And that caused a lot of brain damage to occur in my brain. And the doctors told my parents, plain and simple, she's not going to be able to walk, she's not going to be able to talk, she's not going to be able to play sports, she's not going to be able to do anything on her own. scary and really hard to think about. I remember for the first 6 years of my life, I was constantly in and out of doctor's appointments because as I got older, my parents didn't understand why in the world would the doctors say something like this, but our daughter seems to be completely fine. For the most part. So the doctors were wrong about me being severely handicapped, but they were right about two things. They knew that because my brain wasn't fully developed in the womb, they knew that I would have some sort of brain processing issue, which is why, number one, I have sensory processing disorder, and number two, they told my parents that I would be very bad at math. And I am very bad at math. There's a reason why I haven't taken math for the real world yet, and this is my second year in school. Now, sensory processing disorder comes in many different forms because there are many different senses. Some people have a really hard time with tasting really strong foods. Some people have a really hard time with loud noises, but for me, I have a really hard time and I'm very sensitive to textures and feeling things. So you cannot pay me $1,002,000 to walk on grass barefoot or hug a tree. Even thinking about it literally makes me want to puke. And Jake can testify to this one. Because when we were dating and he first found out about my sensory issues, he thought it would be really, really funny to throw my shoes in the middle of a grass field, my sandals, to have me walk on the grass to go and get them. I ended up crying, and he went to go get them for me, and he never messed with me since. It's really important for us to understand if we have sensory issues, to understand our triggers and the things that cause these triggers. And it's important for us to understand the triggers of those around us. So things that seem so simple to you may seem so insanely difficult to somebody else, but you just wouldn't know. That's why it's important for us to spread awareness, because nobody wants to seem like an absolute drama queen for something that is pretty much life-altering. Now to my husband, Jake. I was not mad at you yesterday. I was mad because I couldn't find the shirt that I wanted to wear. I had to walk on the dirt road to go and check the mail. My socks were too tight, and